Let's face it, while some collecting is still affordable, for Nintendo stuff, especially harder to find stuff, it is way out of hand. And you might be someone that collects Game Boy or Game Boy Color and are curious about what games are out there and what to do about it. Well, one option is to use a flash cart, something like this. This is the Easy Flash Junior, and the link will be below to where you can find out more information about this. And I'm going to be sharing with you some rare and expensive, not all expensive, but harder to find, scarce games you may want to check out on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color, because you might be like many, while you have original hardware still lying around, and you may want to check out some games, but the games are hard to get or expensive, or you can't find them, or maybe even your game store's closed by where you live. I'm going to be sharing with you 10 games using actual hardware. So sit back, relax. Here we go. The Easy Flash Junior is around 50 bucks and plays Game Boy and Game Boy Color games. This version that I'm showing today, you do need to get your own SD card. I got one for under $10. You go here to this site where you download the most recent firmware. On a computer, you unzip it and then apply the contents to your SD card of choice. Make sure nothing else is on it, and then install it on to your Easy Flash Junior cart, and it'll update. And you want to make sure to use the appropriate approved firmware. First game to show is Resident Evil Gaiden, and this is an awesome offshoot of the main series, and it contradicts some of the lore. So it's kind of a one-shot. So if you're looking for something a little different, and maybe you haven't played all the Resident Evil games, and you want to check out something pretty interesting on the Game Boy Color. I really love the Game Boy Color palette, and this for a Resident Evil game works. Now, some people criticize some of the puzzle solving of this game and the save features, but I actually thought the combat was rather satisfying. I like how they did it, and you can go around, and it just kind of works for me. I'm a big Resident Evil fan. I haven't played all of them, and I know you're going to have your favorites, but I'm sharing footage using my GameCube and the Game Boy player, and crisp and clean visuals. Thank you to a Carby HDMI adapter. Next up is Ghost N Goblins, and this was another kind of oddity, another one by Capcom, but this is the NES port for Game Boy Color, and it's fantastic. And unfortunately, it's super hard to find. It's fairly scarce and fairly expensive, especially if you go physical cart route, especially complete. Oh my goodness, some of these Game Boy games now are in the hundreds of dollars. And so, go this route if you just want to play a game. And this is a great conversion of the NES game. As some people would rather play the arcade. I grew up with the NES version of it, and I think it's one of the better ports of the classic arcade game. And still super difficult, but just so well done, and it's a perfect fit for a Game Boy Color, and a great one to check out using a flash card. As it's all about the gaming, right? It's all about playing the games and enjoying games of yesteryear. Next up, you have the Super Game Boy, which is one of my favorite accessories for the Super Nintendo, and I'm happy to announce that the Easy Flash Junior does work with it. It's a little tricky. You have to double click the reset button above the label on the flash cart when it's inserted into the Super Game Boy and hardware of choice. And up next is Castlevania Legends. Now, I'm not here to say that this is better than the two previous installments on the Game Boy, and this one often gets overlooked. It's not included with the Castlevania Anniversary Collection, as it's no longer considered canon. And so this one often gets overlooked, and some people didn't like the gameplay, as some people felt it was limited by original Game Boy hardware, but I found it still satisfying to go back. It is a little bit on the easy side, so if you are someone that just wants to play through a game and beat it, this one is fairly short and well worth it, especially on such a device as a flash cart. This game is expensive. This game is really expensive and fairly hard to get now. So why not go back and play a Castlevania that you might have overlooked, and just to see how it is and compare it to the other Castlevanias that you enjoyed at the time. Have you played this one? In the comments below, let me know. There were a ton of Batman games made 16 and 8-bit, and this one is awesome, and often it's overlooked. For whatever reason, you know, there was a Super Nintendo counterpart with a different title, and, you know, Batman the Animated Series on Game Boy came out, I do believe, in '93, and it's just well done. And, you know, it's everything that you would want in an action platform where you can choose Batman or Robin. Really nice sound and graphics. And another one that's getting kind of expensive, especially complete. And you might be a big fan of the TV series, or, you know, maybe you're just a big Batman fan. If you haven't played this, this is well done. You know, I put this up there with other Batman games of the time. And, you know, I don't think it's been discussed as much as it should have been, because I love it. Another one that gets overlooked is Kung Fu Master. And this takes the idea of Kung Fu games of yesteryear and, you know, gives it different levels. And it just feels like an updated version of the original Kung Fu that, you know, I played back in the day, arcade, NES, and I love it. I love what they did here. And this is a game I've never seen in person. And so it's very scarce and fairly hard to find. I don't know price-wise what it is currently, but wow. I love these types of games, these bite-sized gaming experiences, and this is like a perfect game that you want to play on a flash card. You know, sometimes you're overwhelmed when, like, you have like a ROM set or something and like you don't know what to play. This is a game, if you like these types of games, old school style, you're going to feel right at home, and it's well done on Game Boy. I really enjoy it. Another amazing Game Boy Color title is Metal Gear Solid. And this is actually not a port. It actually takes place 7 years after the 1987 MSX release. And it's simply fantastic. It does have a stage setup. There's 13 stages. There's VR missions. There's even a versus mode using the link cable. And if you haven't played this Metal Gear Solid version, oh my goodness, it's so well done. And I think there's going to be a lot of people, if you haven't played it, are going to love it. It was highly, highly rated back in the day, and it is one still that people talk about. And if you haven't played the Game Boy Color version, you are in for a treat. Next up, I know this game's been re-released on modern platforms, as well as a re-release of the original Game Boy Color title, but it's still fairly expensive. And even if you just have original hardware, I'm putting it on the list because Shantae is super hard to get, the original release. But if you don't have any of this, you can play it on modern platforms. I do believe it's going to be released on other platforms in June, PlayStation 4 and 5. And it's always a good thing to support the original developers. Next up is a trilogy of games that are on this list due to the scarcity of them and super expensive. You have Spud's Adventure, which is kind of just a mediocre RPG style game, and it was offered by Atlas, low production numbers. Next up, you have kind of a forgotten Aliens game for Game Boy Color, and it kind of takes some gameplay aspects from the Amiga games Alien Breed. It's not as good, but this game is super hard to find and very expensive, so using a flash cart to play these titles is the way to go. And then another one by Atlas and potato themed is Amazing Tater, and this is more of a puzzle style game. Here I'm showing it, playing it on the original Game Boy. And, you know, these aren't the best games, but, you know, this trilogy of games I'm showing at the end. But if you want to check out some of the harder to find Game Boy games and you don't want to spend thousands of dollars, this is the way to go. Important things to note with this flash card I'm showing. Using new batteries, I was not able to get this flash card to work with my Game Boy Pocket handhelds. For whatever reason, I heard it could be a battery issue, but I didn't further investigate. Also, I did try to use the flash card on GB Boy, which is a clone handheld, no go, and the Analog Pocket. But the good news is the Easy Flash's bigger brother, the Definitive Edition, does work and is compatible with the Analog Pocket. So all the footage today was using a Easy Flash Junior on hardware, and you know, it's not perfect, but it's a great affordable way, under 50 bucks, where you can check out many games on the Game Boy and Game Boy Color library. It nearly plays everything, and you know, for under 50 bucks, it is an option. Now, for people that are wanting a little bit more, or maybe you're more into Game Boy Advance, I did a video on the Easy Flash Definitive Edition, and this one does work with the Analog Pocket if you go that route, and it looks brilliant and can play lots of things. It can even emulate Nintendo games and play Nintendo games on your Game Boy Advance, so it's pretty awesome. So, of the games shown today, what was your favorite? In the comments below, let me know. And as always, thank you so much for coming to my channel. If you like what you see, consider hitting that like and subscribe button and clicking the bell as I'm uploading videos every week. You folks are wonderful and beautiful. Let's keep it positive. This is the Immortal John Hancock, and you have a good day.